Hello, hello, hello. Don't be cheeky. What's going on? I have no idea, everybody. I have no idea. This is a test. Hello, with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. Not quite time for Type 40 Live just yet, but I thought I'd jump on here because YouTube is misbehaving. I know. I'm hardly... Takes one to know one, doesn't it? I shouldn't be the one throwing stones, should I? If anybody out there can see me and hear me, please let me know by all means. It's lunchtime here in the UK. I don't know where you are, but it's lunchtime here within the UK. And so what else would a live streamer, podcaster and YouTuber do but jump on just to make sure everything's working okay? YouTube and YouTube Studio Manager, they're not talking to one another. So we're doing a live stream later on tonight, as always, from 8 p.m. here on the Type 40 channel, providing it all connects properly. The Sodor Engines is here already to greet me. Thank you. Got a few people watching. Thank you so much. What's up with the test? What's up is that there's gremlins in the works, my friend. Gremlins in the works. And I just wanted to see whether it was actually worthwhile continuing with the live stream later on. Because if I do it and nobody can see it, some people out there might be quite happy with that, but it would be an awful waste of my time and my guests' time and anybody else's time who would get excited, wouldn't it? Yeah, so thank you. There's a few people here. Thank you, everybody. Graham Dawson is in. Hi, Graham. Fine. Yeah, fine. Is that the hat? Or just you can hear me and you can see me just fine. I'm happy to know that. Sam's in too, and he says, oh, hello. What's going on? What's going on? I've no idea. Apparently this is an outage. It's quite an actual problem, a widespread problem. It's not just me, so I'm somewhat relieved. How has your weekends been while I've got you? Sam, Graham, Sodor Engines, a few more people watching as well. Cynix is here and says all good, Dan. Well, as good as can be expected, mate. It is still me. The wonders of technology, indeed, Sodor Engines. To be honest, it's one of those things where when you do something like this, I would imagine that plenty of you probably creators of various things, various places. When you do something like this, you get it to the point where it runs like a kind of well-oiled machine-ish. And so when something happens, when something doesn't look the way it usually does or doesn't go where it's supposed to go, you start touching cloth. Just a touch. In the nicest possible way. Oh, good, Dan. Yes, thank you, everybody. Yes, so let me know what you've been up to this weekend. If you like, you've got me for a little while yet. Want to make sure there's enough footage here to make it through to there, so I know what's going on. What do you think about that? Yeah. Yeah, she agrees. Yeah, Karen's just going to get one down now. So I've held off lunch to come and talk to you guys. Well, why not? Why not? What's going on? What else have we? Nice quiet weekend for our mate Graham there. Watched some Laurel and Hardy. You know what? I haven't seen any Laurel and Hardy for years. Properly watched one. You know, I've seen clips of them, of course I have, but properly sat down and watched one. And then I was at a car boot sale. I know. They're going to start banning me from those, aren't they? I was at a car boot sale 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they'd got just a normal DVD, and I think it's got about 3 Laurel and Hardy films on there. And there's one that I've heard of, and one that I haven't, and another one which is a kind of, I think it's sort of like a colorized thing or something. So I'm going to give that a go and see if I find them as amusing as I did when I was a kid. Harold Lloyd was another one. A little bit of Charlie Chaplin, a little bit of Buster Keaton, but they used to be on BBC Two, didn't they, all the time? Ollie Perry, test. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you for the all caps. Good to test it out in all caps. Sodor Engines says, been nothing much outside of mainly spending time in bed, you old dog, you. Evening from Tasmania, says Stephanie Barrett. Good evening to you too, Stephanie. Happy to have your company. Let us know what you've been doing over the last... so it's 10 p.m. So how was your Monday then? If you're ahead, how was your Monday? If you're a real life time traveller, just like Matt Pott is, then you've got the jump on us, haven't you? Here in the Type 40 live studio. Sam says, my weekend was good. Went to the athletics on Saturday. Didn't try to fly anywhere yesterday. No. What athletics? Just participating or watching? It all sounds. I mean, yeah, I've been to the. Yeah, I know, Karen, I know. Yeah, so I've been working out this morning as well. As you can, I've still got my gear on, but I don't know if I'd call it. Well, is it athletics? Is running athletics? Counts, doesn't it? They'd say it does. Yes, so I'm here testing out the YouTube and YouTube Studio communication channels and chewing the fat with you guys. Hasn't it gone quiet in Doctor Who, everybody? Is that a blessing? Let me know what you think about it all, by all means. So yes, we are live this evening, my time. That'll be the middle of the night for you there, Stephanie, and anybody else. No, it'll be first thing in the morning. What am I talking about? First thing in the morning for you there, Stephanie. But we'll be getting together, myself and Shah, on the Monday show. It looks like things, well, people can see me, so I know it's going somewhere. I know that this stream exists, which it'll have to do, won't it? You can't have everything. So yes, we'll be going live a little later on. Got a few little treats lined up there. There'll be our usual survey of what's been going on over the weekend. So myself, Shah, and our returning guest panelist, regular panelist, Chris Walker-Thompson. Now, he's into, always good for a laugh, is Chris, and he's actor, writer, voice artist, impressionist. God blimey, you can go off people, can't you? KC, Skyfire. It wasn't Skyfire one of the Autobots? One of my favourites. He's the big white one with the red wings. Just came back from a Toby Carvery. Delicious roast on my last day off before back to work Tuesday. Yeah, long weekend. Was it KC? Long weekend? Toby Carvery is never a bad idea. Look, I'm a vegetarian, and even I like going to the Toby Carvery. They do have the options, don't they? Yeah. So what do you do, and where do you do it, KC Skyfire? And how long have you had off? Blessings, says Divining Dragon. Blessings to you too, Divining Dragon. The test is working well for me. It's 7 here in Texas. Oh, I'm addicted to. I've got addicted to the TV show Dallas all over again, like 30 odd years after it ended. And Ian Diaz, who went out to Dallas about 2.5 years ago, I think, on a holiday, he went to South Fork, and I'm so jealous. So jealous. Back in the classroom for me in August, says Divining Dragon. Good stuff. Cliff Maxwell's in. Hi, cheers, mate. Hey, cheers to you as well, mate. Had the whole week off. Been lovely. Oh, good for you. Yeah. School's broken up now. You got kids, this is where the noise really starts, isn't it? Divining Dragon, Dallas, that's where. I'm going to have to start calling you Double D, aren't I? Double D, double down. I'm sincerely jealous. I would love to go to Dallas now. And Ian, when he was flying out there, he said, come to Dallas with me. And I'd got all sorts of stuff on at the time. I just couldn't do it. And now, of course, I wish I'd have gone. I mean, I'm terrible with flying anyway. KC Skyfire says, I live in the south of the UK. Well, yeah, that's near enough. And Cliff's in Texas. How did I not know you were in Texas as well, Cliff? It just goes over my head, doesn't it, some of this stuff? I've been to bed and got up a few times since the last time we probably spoke about that sort of thing. So, yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining me for a little while. Let's share some more, by all means. Toby Carveries are a uniquely British thing, aren't they? Everybody's within a short drive or a bus ride, in fact, of a Toby Carvery or one such place. Stephanie will be, she'll be starting at 5 a.m. Tuesday, so I may not catch you. What? You may not catch us live? Perhaps the tail end, as I need my sleep. Oh, well, I suppose that's fair enough. And I didn't get as much as I needed last night. I'll say no more, Stephanie, before that. I hope it was something pleasant, not something nasty like a noisy neighbour or anything going on like that. Yes, so Double D says, I went to Dorset in 1985. Wow. I don't think I've ever been to Dorset. I've been to John Yulden's neck of the woods. I've been to Bournemouth and all around there. I don't think I've ever been to Dorset. Dorset is where Chris Chibnall resides, isn't it? So it's another reason not to go. Last thing I wanted to bump into that, no, Mark. Bloody hell. Dorset is around 30 mins drive down the road to me. Lovely place. People comparing. Yeah, this is what we like. Bring people together. And, bring people together here in the live chat. North of Houston, Texas. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, I'd love to go, Cliff. I sincerely would. It's the lack of flying and general being a massive pussy. It stops me, I think it is. next time, I think I'm just going to have to book it, aren't I? I'm going to book the whole sort of South Fork experience. If it's anything like the Doctor Who experience, do people dressed as... Didn't you go in through the double doors at South Fork? Does dry ice come out at you and you get to pour yourself a drink in JR's bar, a bit like the Doctor Who experience? That's what I'd like to know. Do people come up to you dressed as Jock Ewing and everybody else from the Oil Baron's Ball? It's like interactive. That's probably what I'd do if I was running South Fork. So it's probably best that I don't. Yes, and yes, you're driving my mother down to Houston to see my... Oh, yes, there's a bit of family. Very, very wholesome. Double D, very, very wholesome stuff. Yeah, there's nothing like that around here. Oh, what am I talking about? Of course there is. So Peaky Blinders was filmed just up the road from me. So there's all those locations at the Black Country Museum. Well, some of it was. Half of it was. The other half, I think, was filmed in Ireland. Graham Dawson says, Dan, do you think Doctor Who magazine will go under? So that's the official Doctor Who magazine, currently published by Panini and edited by Jason Quinn, the man who came out with some very strange things just last week, didn't he, in the Deadline article. Do you think that Doctor Who magazine will go under? I stopped buying it a while ago. I've got no reason to expect that it could go under. I can't see... I'd love to talk to Jason about this, actually, or I've spoken a little to past editors about it. But I'd love to know how they sustain their line of specials, special editions, and bookazines at this current time. The cover prices of those are so, well, in my view, they're extortionate. That could be unfair because the journalists involved, the writers involved, the creatives involved are... let's pick the right word, Dan. The journalists involved are credible and reliable and know the subject. But the reason why I've had to sort of start picking and choosing is simply financial. And also there's only so much reading time that I think any of us have got. So I think Doctor Who magazine are spreading themselves too thinly. I don't really see... I think it's in the best interests of Doctor Who to have an official magazine. Star Trek has one. Star Wars has one. I think they're both with Titan, aren't they? The Star Trek magazine is currently edited by John Freeman, who used to edit Doctor Who magazine. Nice fella. So if they've got them, then Doctor Who should have one as well. But I believe that it's flabby, and they need to sort of look at the whole strategy again. So I just think that less is more, Graham. If the franchise goes down, then obviously there'll be fewer licenses up. And so it could well be that there's less marketability in an official magazine connected to a brand that without a show on television anymore. But I think as long as Doctor Who exists as a TV show, Doctor Who magazine is safe to exist in one form or another. I believe that form myself needs a rethink. But then again, that's nothing on Jason. I mean, he's inherited a model of publication, hasn't he? And maybe he'll look at cutting his cloth later on. I don't know. Thank you for that question, Graham. Double D loved Peaky Blinders, waiting for the film. Hey, didn't make any film. Yeah, I haven't seen the last couple of seasons yet. And Sam reminds us that Dorset is a great county for Doctor Who locations. I've been to Athenhampton House, from the Seeds of Doom, yes, and Dorchester and Lulworth Cove, used in the Curse of Fenric. It looks bloody cold there. I think John says he's been there as well, come to think of it, so it must be closer than I think. John Jordan thinks he's been there. Cliff says, I think Dan thinks we all wear Stetsons and ride our cows down to the saloon on the way to our oil patch each day. Well, I do now, Cliff. I do now. And Sodor Engine says, I must admit, I'm considering to stop buying Doctor Who magazine because it's so bare bones for $7.99. That is a hell of a cover price. There's no two ways about it. It's more than SFX is. It's more than Empire magazine is. It's printed on better paper than both of those. It's arguably just as well written. In fact, I think they use some of the same writers as well. I mean, Darren, who's the editor of SFX, massive Doctor Who fan, so I know how much he puts into that, and you can tell. I believe that Doctor Who magazine is overpriced. I think that it's again, what does it say about an official magazine? Who are they attempting to coax to become the next generation of readers of that magazine, or are they just accepting the fact that younger generations perhaps don't buy magazines? Are they going all in on the digital model? I don't know. But I believe it's cost prohibitive at $7.99 an issue every 4 weeks, isn't it? But again, they keep publishing it. So, but there's got to be some sort of limit. Circulation was down when I last looked, but I haven't looked for a little while, and I'd hate to see Doctor Who magazine disappear. I sincerely would. Thank you again for that question, Sodor. And yes, DD says, I think the merchandise is the metric to discuss the health of the show. I think I wouldn't call it the metric, but it is an important one, a crucial one. Yeah. I still suspect there will be a third series, but the tone and direction may be tweaked. I'm not certain about things after that. Well, nobody's certain about things after that, are they? I mean, how can they will have to tweak the tone and direction. I mean, they probably will anyway. That does tend to be how it goes with Doctor Who. I can't think of any 3 seasons of it, consecutive seasons, that have had the exact same tone and direction. So simply by a process of elimination and looking back at history, Doctor Who history, TV history, it will evolve. It will evolve, but whether that will be in time or not to rally any kind of increased viewership, that's another question, isn't it? I think that becomes a taller order as time goes on. Stephanie says, I bought the digital one with David Tennant on the cover last year, but haven't considered it worth finding the money in these hard times for a subscription or to buy any more one-off magazines. So you have to pick your battles, Stephanie. We've only got so much in the coffers, any of us, haven't we? And Dee Dee says, I gave up buying current Doctor Who merchandise since I'm so unhappy with the direction of the show. I think I'm not alone in my feelings. I think people curate the lines of merchandise that they're invested in anymore. I used to be a completist for Big Finish and for Doctor Who magazine. I still have every issue of Doctor Who magazine right the way back from 1979. I didn't start buying it until a year later. And I didn't start buying it issue by issue until about 2 years after that. But I went back and ordered the ones I missed. So I've got a complete collection of Doctor Who magazine. But a little while ago, I made the choice to dip on some of the associated publications around it, all the special editions, all the bookazines, simply because I thought they were milking me for cash. And it was literally, even if it wasn't the cash, there was actually more than I had time to read. I mean, I'm not a great reader at the best of times, but I always make time for Doctor Who magazine every single month, but all the rest of it. Boomer Doug's in. Hi, Boomer Doug. That's Doug Sims, of course it is. A pleasant surprise. Beats getting up at 4 a.m. Australia time. Wow. Happy to have woken you up, disturbed your sleep. And yes, Dee Dee says, I was a collector for a long time, but in Los Angeles 1 year ago, I was burgled, lost hundreds of discs and such. I haven't had the heart to recreate that's awful. I mean, that sends shivers up my spine and perhaps a few other people out there. I mean, being burgled, obviously, it's a violation anyway. It feels, my sympathies, mate, my sympathies. But I mean, the general question about merchandise, a lot of people dialed out on merchandise, people who were complete on various things during the Jodie Whittaker era because of that feeling of adversity, the feeling of there was a notion that they simply didn't need us or want us anymore. And a great many of us, those out of bloody mindedness or whatever you want to call it, or simply because it was the only way that we could we could demonstrate our disdain and distaste, was by voting with our wallets. So I think that happened quite a lot. Lots of lines of merchandise were curtailed, licenses were not renewed when the time came around, and the Doctor Who brand has never really recovered from that. And it had sort of plateaued a little during the early Capaldi era anyway, I'd say, and the things that people were investing their time in. Remember, things like Lego Dimensions, that interactive game, and pop vinyls, and there was a move, wasn't there, towards digital merchandise almost. And I know there's a market for that stuff, but I'm never really sure what I'm getting at, to tell you the truth. So it's completely, if I can't dust it, I don't own it. It's the way I look at it. But And Graham asks, do you think Big Finish are making a mistake by doing the 13th Doctor? The fans of the 13th Doctor don't buy Big Finish. Talked about this a little last Monday, I think it was, in the last Type 40 live stream after that news. Yeah, I mean, I won't lie to you. I was incensed that Jodie Whittaker was allowed anywhere near a Doctor Who script anymore. Yeah, I was incensed for about an hour and a half. And and then I had a bit of a rethink, as I said on the show, and I thought, well, you know, I'm not the market for these anyway. Look, if Big Finish have found a market, if they've done the market research, they know how many units of this they can expect to shift, depending on the budget that they have for each release, as they do for any line that they originate or that they keep running. Then good luck to them. I'm not the target audience for this whatsoever. I believe, Graham, taking off my objectivity hat, I believe that fans of the 13th Doctor have largely moved on. I think they've squirreled back to Tumblr and all the places they used to hang out, because you don't really hear so much of them as you used to. There's a dedicated 5 or 6 people who never stop crowing on about it, but and maybe then there are people out there who'll be willing to give that incarnation a second try. There are a lot of optimists in the Doctor Who fandom who have only written off the era, either in hindsight or reluctantly, and now are thinking, okay, I'm willing to be convinced. Perhaps they didn't get the wrong actress for that part. Perhaps it was just the writing. Perhaps it was just the timing. Perhaps it was just the politics around it. And they may be willing to give Big Finish a shot with this. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. It's, to me, purely for my tastes, if all we're left with is Jodie Whittaker's voice, and to me that's the most irritating thing about her. So how she plays the part. So it's the voice that goes right through me, but obviously results may vary. It's too early to say whether Big Finish are making a mistake or not. I think Big Finish... I think it's sensible of Big Finish to explore options as regards lines to see which markets out there they could tap into, or markets they could create. In fact, they've done that successfully with their own properties and stuff that's not Doctor Who. I think it's ambitious of them. I think it's gutsy. I'm trying to be polite here. And I do wish them well with it, but it remains to be seen. They've made mistakes in the past. You know, there's some lines, you can see that some things they want to carry on and roll on, and they just don't sell enough. I suspect we'll know sooner rather than later how it plays out for them, but I do wish Big Finish the best. I think they're, like any licensee, they're in a tough situation. It sort of goes back to what we were saying about Doctor Who magazine earlier on. I think they're in a tough situation as well. Super John says, thank you, Graham, I don't buy Doctor Who magazine, but I still get the classic B&M toys. Also the classic Blu-ray collections if they are available. Yeah, I'd buy more of the B&M toys if you could get them in the B&Ms that I go to, but you can't. They're never bloody there. It doesn't buy Doctor Who magazine. So I continue buying Doctor Who magazine, but some months it's terrible. I used to read it from cover to cover. Blimey. Oh, when did I suspect I used to read it from cover to cover. It was certainly up until the 50th anniversary. I was still reading every single word and enjoying practically all of it as well. I think it continued into the Capaldi era as well, come to think of it. And it was like everything else. It was the Chris Chibnall tenure. I won't blame Jodie for all of it, because it was Chris Chibnall that wrote the production. What's it called? The Russell T Davies column, production notes column. My God, that was a boring read. It was just this middle-aged guy complaining about how crap his job was, how crap his life was. I think, God, bloody hell, mate, give it a rest. Cliff says, I'd still love a full series somehow. I started with all the VHS that got replaced with DVDs and then season box sets. Can't keep up money-wise. Again, define completists. A lot of people, when a new format comes out and they start a new line of merchandise, they think, okay, I've got all the DVDs, the Blu-rays are coming, I'll sell the DVDs. And people did the same with the VHS when the DVDs came out. Some people find that easier than others. I've still got all the VHS, still got all the DVDs. I'm buying the Blu-rays as well. I think we're about halfway through. No, we're further than halfway into the Blu-ray range, aren't we? It's gone a lot deeper than 15 boxes, something like that. Boomer Dog says, I would love a classic TARDIS playset. That won't happen. I've dialed out. What could... Yeah, but if you want it, Doug, if you really, really want it, there must be something that they could do. What could they do that would bring you back? You probably wouldn't take that much. If you saw your dream TARDIS playset from whichever era you're imagining in your mind now, and it was suddenly there for pre-order, how much would it be? Would you go for it? You'd be hovering over the pay now button. And then like Shooty Gatwa's face would appear in front of your eyes saying, go touch grass, and you close the window down and go buy something else. We're only human, all of us, aren't we? Yes, Didi says, regarding Big Finish and the Jodie Whittaker stuff, he says, I think they're reaching by doing Whittaker. I'm not sure it will find a broad audience. It won't find a broad audience. It could find a niche audience for them, which is... it's a niche within a niche, isn't it? You could say that Big Finish exists off thriving with niche audiences. And again, I wish them well with it. They will have to see the numbers to decide if they want more of those stories. They've made quite a long-term commitment on it. Cliff says, I bought every single book, missing only about 4 from the early New Adventures, 8th Doctor and the Missing Range. Yeah, I bought those for years and years and years, and then when I bought my first house, I sold them all. I kept all the Target books, I sold all the Virgin books, and now I kind of wish that I hadn't, you know. They're the only big line of Doctor Who merchandise that I've ever sold over the years, mainly because I didn't like them. But now I do. When I see people's collections, you know, when you get a bit of shelf porn, when somebody shows you around their Doctor Who room and there's a line of those white spine New A books, I think, God, why did I sell those again? some of the covers by people like Peter Elson and Jeff Cummins, some of the covers themselves are beautiful. Okay, what else have we got here? And Dog's got up earlier for his coffee. Good, yeah. Super John says, I used to own a huge collection of video, but they got ruined in storage. The tape inside became mold infested, rendering them unusable. I haven't got much VHS left, I have to say, but that's a common thing I hear about a lot. I was a big VHS collector, big DVD collector even now. Stephanie adds, back to the subject of Jodie Whittaker on Big Finish. Big Finish must think she'll do better with the better scripts, I presume, that they've written. That's what I was hanging on to. I think the idea... No, well, not me. I think that's what we collectively, those of us who can muster up the generosity, I suppose, and those who are prepared to give that incarnation another go. That's what a lot of us think. Maybe they've got better creatives, better scripts. Because let's be honest, a lot of great writers have been banging out good, solid adventure stories for multiple incarnations of that character, a Big Finish now for 25 years. Why wouldn't they? You'd think they'd put their best writers, their most dependable writers to work on that line. You've got to give it every chance of success as early as possible, haven't you? And then I read something from the producer over on Twitter where she seemed to be recruiting. I mean, in all fairness, as our guest on the show that evening reminded me, Will Hadcroft, she didn't use the word exclusively when she actively asked for people for, was it non-white writers that she was asking specifically for? And she didn't say exclusively, but it was still a very strange thing to read on a public forum, I felt. And it sets the alarm bell ringing. It's sort of like, well, any hope that I had that line would be full of the, you know, people like the Una McCormacks, the Gary Russells, the Nicholas Briggses, the Rob Valentines, you know, the great writers of Big Finish who were dependable time after time, the Matt Fittons, the John Dorneys, but they're unlikely to be there. I mean, I could be wrong. It's early days, isn't it? I think they've recorded some already. Who knows? Let us know in the live chat if you are in. If you're going to give it a second try, give that incarnation another day in court with some better material. I think it's safe to say that they couldn't do any worse than Chris Chibnall himself, could they? I'm with you, Doug. For me, Jodie's voice is like fingernails down a blackboard. And if I never hear the expression "fam" again, it will be too soon. You see, all that stuff will be in there, I suspect. And it just reminds me of a time where the series itself seemed to be actively pushing me away, almost insisting that I leave the audience. Very, very strange. And yeah, Chris Chibnall was responsible for the stories in Whittaker's run. He was the source of the problems in all those years. I believe, I agree with you. James A. Fitzpatrick's here too. Hi, James, and says, I dipped in and bought a Doctor Who magazine recently, the Beatles cover, and I was shocked at how much of the content was for Classic Who. I think they know. Well, I suppose you're right. Yeah, it's... I think that a lot of the writers... The regular writers, I don't know if they've got staff writers on Doctor Who magazine anymore, but I think a lot of the regular writers are slightly older people who, even if they weren't around during the classic series, have come to love it and very vocal about it. And it's the era of the show, I think, that's still strangely, I think the classic series is more alive than ever. I keep saying that and I mean it. It's the era of the show that's still most ripe for exploration, for study and celebration. I sincerely do. And Stephanie asks, what is it about Jodie's voice that irritates a lot of people? I'm presuming it wouldn't be her accent. Let us know, Instagram, X, and in the comments section, what is the most irritating thing about Jodie Whittaker's voice? Maybe we'll do a poll on that. I think it's everything. The cadence, the tone, the accent. In my view, the Doctor should never have a regional accent. I didn't agree with it. Or if the Doctor does have a regional accent, it should never ever be mentioned and harped on about. It shouldn't be lent into. I didn't like it when Chris Eccleston did it, and so there's no way I was going to like it when Jodie Whittaker did it. Yes. What's this? Okay. Let's go a little bit longer. Yes, Type 40. I want to see a full collection of all Doctor Who series from 1963 on, missing episodes recreated to have the entire collection. I'm impatient for that. Well, the BBC are trying to give it us in one form or another, aren't they, with animations and things like that. If that's your bag, failing that, you can go for the Telesnaps loose cannon. The loose cannon stuff is still accessible, I believe. I've had mine for quite a long time, so I don't know how they distribute it now. Or, of course, there's Ian Levine as well, and his incredible work in pushing all that on with artificial intelligence. Sodor engines. Oh, yes. Yeah, so who was it? Was it you? Who mentioned the fact that... It was Doug. Was it you, Doug, who said that you would buy a TARDIS playset despite the fact you're somewhat disenfranchised by the brand? Which TARDIS would it be? For the Sodor engines, it would be the TV movie TARDIS playset. I'd buy that in a heartbeat. In a double pulse heartbeat, maybe. And DD says you were right, correct. Colin Baker is looked upon better with better scripts, so it's possible to redeem a substandard Doctor by generating better tales. Yeah, the actor, the performer, has to respect the material, respect the medium, and understand the medium. I think it also comes as well with coming to a place in oneself. Colin was done dirty by Doctor Who. Not by Doctor Who fans, but he was done dirty by Doctor Who, by his association with Doctor Who. It affected his career. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it affected his mental health and general well-being. And I think it shows great strength of character, generosity, and self-awareness that he got to the place that he did and has with it and stayed there. And accepted the presidency of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society and being so active and so open with us, despite those bad memories. But he's had decades to come to terms with it all. I would imagine that he's had it all in check for quite a while now, and he's got the support of family and friends. I've no doubt other actors who've been in similar situations. Whereas with Jodie, I think Jodie honestly believes, and I've not met the woman, I don't know Jodie Whittaker, but the impression that I get from reading and seeing her is that she believes all the hype. She believes it was all fantastic. Everything went really, really well. And there's this waiting audience who loves everything that she does. I don't know, she seems... That could be unfair. That could be unfair too. I have heard rumours otherwise. And despite how they make it appear, I know through sources that I personally know several people who were part of the production at that time. It was not a happy working environment. There were all the pressures that you would expect with making a show on that kind of level, because it was ambitious for British television, but it was not a happy workplace at all. and the Chaos in Cardiff story. And there was a lot of truth to that, if you remember, from about 4 years ago, wasn't it? The Sodor Engines bemoans the fact that the new adventures are hard to get so far, but I do have a small collection of 4 of the books and an audiobook of Human Nature. So Goth Opera's just come out, hasn't it? That was a Virgin missing adventure. So Big Finish are turning some of these into audio dramas. God bless them. They're obviously picking and choosing, I suppose. What else is here? The closest I can get to mood music. The best thing Big Finish ever did was Jago and Lightfoot. I thought it would have been a great spin-off. Yeah, fantastic. I haven't heard all of those, but I've got a great deal of them. I used to be a completist with Big Finish. A question for you, says Boomer Dog. How do you handle negative comments? My YouTube channel has been going for 3 weeks. Has some good feedback, but the nasty ones sting a bit. How do you handle negative comments? Everybody, well, it's everybody's entitled to their opinion, Doug. As a content creator, one puts oneself out here, and it comes with the territory that not everybody's going to like you, not everybody's going to appreciate what you say, or the things that the content that you make, and the spirit in which it's offered. And you can't legislate for everybody. And with the best one in the world, I just ignore it. I mean, interact as much. It depends on the comment as well. It depends on the tone of the comment. If people are being constructive, then you interact with them. I think, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Maybe they've got something to say which is of value. If they're saying something that's constructive, and maybe they've got a point. I don't know. It's good to listen to feedback, but I think we each of us know, don't we? And this is in real life or digitally, when we're being disrespected or not, whether we're being trolled or not. And so listen to that part of you, but it's nothing to be afraid of. We have a lot of negative comments, and there's always those 2 or 3 people who hit the thumbs down on a video, and they do that. Sometimes they do it before the stream even starts. And if they get the endorphin rush by doing that, that's absolutely fine. But how do you handle? Engage with the people that you want to. Don't with the people that you don't want to. It would be my advice. It's people are people, whether it's in the real world or the online world. More fans of Jago and Lightfoot have popped up. So Boomer Doug there on YouTube. Go and support Boomer Doug and give him a lift. Leave him some nice comments. Boomer Doug there, though. Yes, so DD subscribed as well. Colin has grown on me. He's a great actor and seems like a lovely bloke, says Boomer Doug. Yeah, I've never met Colin. I don't think I've ever even been in the same room as Colin Baker. I'd like to, though. I mean, several people I know have met him, spent a lot of time with him. Some people have worked with him. And apparently, as you'd expect, he's a big personality. I think all of the doctors are big personalities. And Stephanie, going back to Jodie Whittaker, my God. Back to Jodie Whittaker, it's like a race memory. I didn't like her doctor, but didn't find her voice annoying. Mind you, if I ever inflict a repeat watch on myself, well, yeah, give it a go. I mean, I'm never going to watch that stuff again. I can't imagine there's any reason that I would. Just so Dee says, many celebrities like Whittaker and Shooty Gatwood tend to live in a bubble. And yes, they will clamp onto the positive press to feed the illusion. I think that, yes, some people who in every profession live in a little bubble, don't they? It's safety in that. It depends on the kind of person you are, I suppose. I get the impression that Jodie Whittaker does. She's how old? She's just like a middle-aged woman now. She's been acting about 20 years. I think she's used to people telling her what she wants to hear. Shooty, I think he's getting to that place. I think being in a high-profile role like the Doctor now for a couple of years, even though we've only seen him for 7 months. But he's been playing the part for a couple of years now. It may be going to his head. That's probably unfair. But I believe that Shooty's being mismanaged by those running the show. That I think I think the worst sides to his nature, and I get the impression he can be a bit of a prima donna, be a bit sort of starry. I like my stars to be a bit nutty, to be a bit eccentric, and to have huge... I think if actors have egos, if performers have egos, yeah, that's kind of what you want, really. but there is something about. I think Shooty has changed just in the time that he's been playing the part. That's could come from confidence. I don't know, but I get the impression he's surrounded by a lot of people who blow smoke up his arse, which is it's fine in the here and now. But the problem is that eventually people come back crashing back down to earth, don't they? And it's not that I don't think he's talented. I do, but when he went into the role wanting to play it a certain way. He wanted to wear certain things. And it seems like they nodded their head and said, well, that's all very well, Shooty, but try wearing this. Have you thought of wearing a skirt instead? Or or a woman's blouse or whatever? And you go, yeah, go for that. Why not? I think that Shooty Gatwa probably does live in a little bubble now. The more famous he gets, probably the worse that's going to get. Who else is here? We've got Heretic here, who says, Heretic up in Dudley says, it's been a long time as I've not felt myself, but I'm here checking YouTube while working a test stream. Yes, it's working a test stream here. It's been a long time. Yeah, I know you've probably been on holiday as well, haven't you, mate? So yeah, happy to see you there in the chat again. Filmed in super reticulation. Wow, what is super reticulation? Said it right the first time, didn't I? And they ask, have you heard about the possible Blake 7 Blu-rays that are coming out? I have heard about the possible Blake 7 Blu-rays from very credible sources as well. In the past, I've looked into the credibility of Blake 7 on Blu-ray, and interviewed with people too who were on the inside at the time 3 or 4 years ago, and the general line was that BBC Studios, the people who put the Blu-rays together for the Doctor Who line, had looked at the feasibility, just like we were saying with Jodie Whittaker and the Big Finish stuff. They'd looked at the feasibility of putting Blake 7 onto Blu-ray and decided that it was cost prohibitive, that there weren't enough potential customers out here to justify the investment, the expense, the man hours to put into 4 box sets of Blake 7, a show that obviously finished 43 years ago. Obviously, I was disappointed when I heard that, because I'd love Big Finish. I'd love Blake 7 on Blu-ray. I'd buy all those in a heartbeat. But you do wonder how many of us are there out here. Has Blake 7's profile increased over the last 4 years? Probably. Being on BritBox, certainly now up on the iPlayer, I understand. I know it's available. Yes, so it's on BritBox in the States as well, isn't it? And probably everywhere else in the world. So maybe its profile has increased. I think the work of Big Finish continuing to put out audio dramas based on Blake 7 have helped it. I think the incredible work of Cult Edge and their not-for-profit Blake 7 fan books. Hello, Graham. If you're watching, Graham and Jonathan out there, Graham is a friend of mine. In fact, I think I might have given him the idea to do the annual in the first place. I think he said I did. So you got those guys putting out fabulous books that get well reviewed. So the profile of Blake 7 is rising, and with those books shifting units, maybe they've looked at it again 3 or 4 years on. I don't know. Thanks for reminding me. I also have an audio adaptation of Damaged Goods, says Soda Energy. So I hope that answers your question about Blake 7. I mean, yes, I have heard, and obviously I've got fingers, toes, and everything I can't mention crossed as well. James A. Fitzpatrick had all the Virgin New Adventures and Missing Adventures, but he sold Longbow and the Dying Days because they were available online. Still haven't read all of them, though. I sold my copy of Longbarrow for £80 or £90, something like that. I sold them all because I was buying my first home. And it just seemed like I was having kids, buying houses, all that sort of stuff. And I kind of wish I'd got all those White Spine books now, though. Yeah. What else have we got here? Divining Dragons says, I think it must hurt you if you are providing a balanced and neutral opinion. If you are provocative, you're most likely to trigger trolls. If you aren't, it must still sting. Look, content creators who are more provocative do tend to get people's backs up more. But it's not a general rule of thumb either. I mean, you wouldn't believe. I don't consider myself to be. I don't consider myself to be particularly provocative. But there are people out there who think I'm some sort of shock jock sat here on this channel. Like I say the wildest stuff. I really, really don't. I mean, last week I asked Shah on the show whether she'd rather be a Smurf or an Avatar. You know, I don't really see how. It's hardly cutting edge stuff, is it? Hello, BinTube. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Boomer Dog says, cheers, mate, that helps. Some of the feedback has been weird, but I love the constructive comments. The constructive comments will be, I mean, some of those will be a little bit frustrating as well, because they'll have very particular wants, things that they expect your stream to be or your show to be, because they'll be looking at other people. Maybe they've got another podcast or another live stream or another content creator, YouTuber. They think, oh, well, I like this, but I wish it was more like them. I wish it was more like, like Jack from the Nerd Den, or, Geek's Handbag, or any of the guys, Adam Martin, any of those fabulous YouTubers out there in the Doctor Who space. Think, oh, I wish it was more like that. But you can't be Jack, because Jack's Jack. You be Doug. It's enough. And you go with your creative instincts, and you see where it takes you, mate. That's what I would suggest. Graham Dawson says, I come from Yorkshire. Are you doubting Jodie's credentials as a real Yorkshire woman? Jodie's not a proper Yorkie, no flat cap and no whippet. You don't know. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she's got maybe a tattoo of a whippet somewhere on her inner thigh. Oh God, no! I can't get that image out of my head now. Why do I say these things, Lee? Why do I say these things? Thank God, Lee's here to keep me on the straight and narrow. Good afternoon, my friend. Sadako24 says, the only Jodie stories I could see myself watching again are Resolution and The Witchfinders. Resolution? What the bloody hell's Resolution? Remember The Witchfinders, though? That had got Alan Cumming in it, hasn't it? Alan Cumming. My God, what a cock. Fabulous as the king in that episode, though. That's one of the episodes that was almost tolerable, mainly because of the fact that Alan Cumming is a fabulous character actor, and it was quite well written as well. Unfortunately, it had got Jodie Whittaker in it, so that's where we fall flat with that one. Doug asks, what do you make of the stories that Disney may be pulling out of Doctor Who? Well, we've already talked about that. We talked about that for 2 hours last Thursday, Doug. So if you've been stuck up a time eddy somewhere recently, you may have missed our live stream. That was Type 40 Live Mousetrap last Thursday. That was myself, Charlotte, John Yulden, the Rabbi from Another Planet was our special guest, and Matt Pott. We went through that article with a fine tooth comb. We had a lot of fun doing it as well, as always, at Type 40 Live. Yeah, that was a good one. So go back and check that out, and you'll find out. We are live streaming tonight. It looks like this is working, so we can live stream. We will be live streaming tonight, and we do have a follow-up bit of information about the Deadline article. We have an answer. Who from? I'm not going to tell you. Until tonight from 8 o'clock here on the Type 40 channel for Type 40 Live. Hello, Toastland. Happy to see you there, mate. Jamie Knight says, mid-Doctor Who is here to stay. I celebrate its mediocrity. Yeah, I can't. It is very mid, isn't it? I mean, mid as a starting point. I think we can hope that it's going to... The comment we had earlier on, and forgive me, I can't remember who asked that, is the tone going to be adjusted? I would hope so. You want it to build for the production for this take on Doctor Who to gain in confidence, and for them to start raising the standards. That will come in time. But given the fact that we've got another series in the bank, as I say, they've got to be tweaking it already. They will be looking at the reception to season 1 before season 2 is broadcast. It looks like season 2 is going to be broadcast late March next year. That's still a big chunk of time. They've got a lot of time to go back into that material and think, okay, what tuned people out the last time? Because the conversations will be being had. If not, I think there'll be conversations at Disney and at the BBC, but I think there'll be very different things, very different conversations, because they've both got very different interests. They want the same outcome. Of course they do, more eyes on Doctor Who, but they've got individual interests as well and wants for it. Obviously the BBC, it's their IP. If long term, it will always belong to them. So they've got different ones for it. It's just a pity that the BBC is run by how can I put this, intellectual infants now, rather than the towering intellects of years gone by. Stephanie Barrett says Shooty seemed quite humble and keen to embrace the Doctor when he was first announced. Such a great pity he's changed. He did. I think he did want to embrace the Doctor. I think he had a handle on how to play it. Did he embrace this Doctor? Maybe they did embrace before or after. No, but I agree with you. I think he was hungry to play the part. I think he understood it. I still think he understands it, but he's also being pulled in different directions now for whatever reason. Who knows? Well, I think we know the reasons, don't we? Logic, an appeal for logic from Problem being. Logic is sorely missing in the Russell T Davies camp. Yeah, afraid so. Afraid it is. No self-awareness whatsoever. It seems too much blowing smoke up each other's bottoms. I want Blake 7 on Blu-ray. Adsley as well. Oh, couldn't agree more, mate. You're no arguments here. The Paul Toaston says the 7 dwarfs took a bath and felt happy. Happy left and they felt grumpy. Oh my God. No, I think that's you got the wrong chat here. That's for the rabbi from another planet. I think you'd like that one as well. Dee Dee asks again, I fear one day that they will redo Blake 7. I don't trust them to reboot it with integrity. Well, the good news is the BBC can't reboot Blake 7 because they don't own it. There's been several, I think there's been two companies that have optioned Blake 7 for a reboot, a reimagining over the years, but both of them bailed before production was due to take place. The Sci-Fi Channel, or Sci-Fi, SYFY, that was one of them. Multi-investors on that one. And I think it was Sky in Britain, but that was going back 15, 16 years now. And one day it may happen. I don't know. They have no idea what logic is. Well, yes. Doesn't look like it, does it? Is Blake 7 really on iPlayer? Asks Robert Payne. I will watch again if true. Please double check that. I wouldn't want to send Robert Payne over to the iPlayer in vain. That'd be a terrible thing to do, wouldn't it? To have you go and not be able to find Blake and Avon and everyone else. You'd be thinking, oh, bloody Hadley told me that, and he was making it up. He was found to be untruthful. Yeah, I wouldn't want that at all. And Stephanie says, I was so thrilled to watch Blake 7 again when it came to BritBox Australia a few years ago, as I hadn't seen it since the last episode was broadcast. Yeah, it's a real treat. And Graham Dawson wants Sapphire and Steel on Blu-ray. That's an even taller order. Obviously, since I think there was always a chance maybe that Network may have done that, but since Network went under, who made Sapphire and Steel? That was Central, and before them, it was ATV, wasn't it? I don't know as they even own the raw material that would make that feasible, because it was shot on video, wasn't it? All in the studio, most in the studio. There's like 2 outdoor scenes. Yeah. I'd like to see something lavish done with Sapphire and Steel. I can't see Blu-ray making a huge amount of difference, to tell you the truth. But if there's a market, there's a market. And Robert Payne says, a person doesn't need to be provocative to trigger certain people quite. Some people, the tone of your voice can be perfectly reasonable. And the things that you're saying can be perfectly feasible and proven to have been true. And there will be people out there who it will trigger, who it will incense, and it will provoke. And that's just people. People are people. You can't legislate for that at all. Hi, or Blake 7 on Blu-ray. Yes, please, says Philip King. Very, very firm agreement there. And Casey adds, this is, I suppose, to your point, Doug. I think at the end of the day, you can't please everyone. I think that's what they is trying to say. I don't know who you are, Casey. I shouldn't say that. I think at the end of the day, you can't please everyone, but then you shouldn't have to try. No, you should please yourself first and foremost. Decide about the kind of content that you want to make, what's important to you, and then see what happens after that. Sodor Engines says, me selling my books. Yeah, I've come to terms with that. Doug says, I'm surprised you have had nasty pasties. Dan, you are balanced and optimistic. Well, depends who you talk to, really. I mean, some people consider me to be a really nasty, sort of reactionary, mega sort of far right conservative guy, and there are other people who consider me to be really quite namby-pamby and a bit of and far too liberal and wet. I seem to wind up everybody, but generally speaking, I mean, I was like a lot of people of our generation. I would count myself as a classic liberal, but I am an optimistic person by nature, and how I view doing this. Content creation and broadcasting, the podcasting, is that the whole point of it is to speak with one's own voice, to be clear about the things I believe and my tastes, and to be authentic to who I am. But it's part of what I do in my chair when I'm moderating something or interviewing somebody is to be balanced, to ask the questions that you might want to know, or you. That's how I view it. Not just to speak from my point of view, because there are two sides or more to every story, and there are a lot more grey areas than there are the black and whites. No, Dan, you're not provocative. You seem to be always ought to be fair and see things from other perspectives. Well, I have my moments, Stephanie. I can be a right arsehole. Of course I can. Thank you, though. Thank you. BinTube says, I think Russell T Davies needs to go to Specsavers so he can actually see what he's writing. Do you think that's what it is? He needs to up the prescription. And then everything could be fine. Could be fine. I don't know. Let's find... what do you think, Chris? Chris probably agrees. He and Russell T Davies have got beef, haven't they? Avon lives. Adds Philip. Lee says, please don't talk about Jodie's inner thigh. No, you're quite right, Chris. He's not so keen on that either. Resolution is the one with the water pistol Daleks, isn't it? Yes, of course it was. It was a New Year's episode, wasn't it? That's what the resolution thing was supposed to be in reference to. And BinTube suspects the tone will only get worse. Mid would be a vast improvement, says Lee. I generally agree with Mid. I think that's probably pretty fair, holistically speaking. Unfortunately, the lows were very, very low. And Robert Payne suspects that season 2 episodes will be suspiciously shorter due to edits. They can't make that show any shorter. If anything, they need more. They need more. Since when? This is a good one from Lee. Since when did celebrating Doctor Who turning into the intellectual comparison to the tweenies a thing? Oh, I see. Well, again, I think Doctor Who appeals to intellectual people. Is it necessarily an intellectual series? I think only with a small I. I think it's a populist show at its heart, and should promote. I think it should promote understanding from its viewership of things like historical facts and events and things like that. You know, when you go back in history, I think there's an obligation and a duty to represent that in a way that's digestible and entertaining, particularly for the younger ones. But I think that it has to be intellectual with a small I. Same as Hards. I don't think Doctor Who can flirt with the themes of hard sci-fi, but as soon as it becomes actual proper hard sci-fi, such as Warrior's Gate and stories like that, then it loses a lot of people. And obviously, having interviewed Paul Joyce, I know that he relished the idea of challenging a Saturday tea time audience, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. But yeah, glad it's not me that has to make that decision. Peter Capaldi was shortchanged in his run. I think he probably was. I think he definitely was, actually. Yeah. And Paul Toastland says they won't change it unless a new team replace the current one. They may have to, Paul. It's a product at the end of the day. And Doctor Who, as it is now, not being made in-house by BBC Studios, being made by Bad Wolf, being marketed by Disney, and obviously being owned, Bad Wolf being owned by Sony. They have to change it. There'll be pressure for them to change it because it's now a marketable commercial product in a way that it wasn't before. So I think there could be realities bearing down on the show now that the BBC wouldn't have had to face, because they'd always got the license fee. And if people didn't want to broadcast Doctor Who anymore, that was on them. The amount of stations internationally that stopped broadcasting, that stopped taking Doctor Who for their channels or whatever during the Whittaker era, it was a massive drop-off. So many countries dropped it. Countries where the show had been mega, mega popular with Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi just decided not to renew, that they didn't want it anymore. And so that was a reality I think that they found unexpected, strange. But there'll be further ones now that it's made by an external production house. So they will have to change it. Of course they will. What they will change, whether it will be enough or not, whether it won't, I think it probably won't be enough for yourself, Paul, if you don't mind me saying. Whether it be enough for Divining Dragon or for Skyfire or Doug or me or Lee or anybody else, it's probably on the individual. Have to wait and see, won't we? Have to wait and see. Disney is well known for rewrites. Do you think they'll force Russell T Davies to do that for season 2? I don't think. Well, they rewrite, they push rewrites and remounts of their movies and their own TV shows. Again, I say this every time I go live, don't I? Wow, I've been on for an hour. Where did that go? Disney can't force Russell T Davies to rewrite material like that. I think they can request additions, request things be taken away. I think requesting rewrites would probably be too much for Russell, for the BBC. And say they only distribute it internationally. They do have a say. I've never said that they don't. They do. And there's the things that I know about that too, which I can't speak of. But I know that they do have a say. But the power to get a writer like Russell T Davies to rewrite a whole season or even episodes, I think that's unlikely. They simply, if they made the show, then yeah, but they don't. Says, I don't know what he's laughing at. I hope he's laughing with me rather than at me. But they laugh at me if you like. Peter Capaldi was robbed. States Skyfire. And Lee suggests that, Blake 7 could be on ITVX. That's almost certainly true, of course, because BritBox doesn't exist in Britain anymore, does it? No. Oh, yes, and Sam says it's on ITVX Premium, not on the iPlayer. Super duper. Let's wrap this up now. I think you can still please most people, states BinTube very confidently, if the product already has a fandom. You can please most people. I don't know. I think you could. I think times have changed now. I think there's a adversarial culture around the entire entertainment industry at the moment, which has pushed people away and pushed people out of the industry as well. And I think my instinct is that the people who've replaced them, that have come into the industry in the last 8 to 10 years since, for example, the BBC's Equality and Diversity Charter changed everything. There are people that have come into the corporation since all that, and to them, this is normal. Yeah. I think you can still please most people. I think you could, but those days may well be over, because there's so many other places that people can go as well, and I think egos have got inflated. This is why I'm a big believer in saving the BBC by drastic reinvention, including a look at the licence fee. I think that it's necessary to save the BBC, to defund it. I don't want to see the BBC die. That's why I believe in defunding the BBC. I think they should be forced to change, because the market has changed, and they just don't see it. They don't see the nuances in it. The reason I like... Oh, thank you, Heretic. The reason I like this podcast, I'll read this out because this isn't just for me, this is for them as well, everybody else who works on Type 40 and Type 40 Live. The reason I like this podcast is you're so balanced on the panel. Mix of those who do and don't like the new series. This is it. We just have good people on, and we exchange our views and takes on this stuff in good faith. I think that's all it really is. Thank you for that, though. It's much appreciated. I'll hopefully the others will see this message as well. And people are talking Stargate, Blake 7, Sapphire and Steel. Fabulous, fabulous stuff. Charmed as well. Oh, Shannon Doherty, bless her heart. Shannon Doherty passed away last week, aged just 53. Bless her heart. Love Charmed. You know me, Dan. I'm a hardliner on this. Yes. Yeah, well, we never changed, Lee. Never changed. And he goes on to add, like I've said before, classic Who was written by intelligent adults for intelligent kids. Now it's written by idiot adults for idiot adults. There's a definite change. I think they do. I think that they believe that they're still writing for kids. They're not, though. Russell is desperately behind the times, totally out of touch. He's got no idea what current kids respond to, what they're interested in, and he doesn't really understand the cultural landscape of 2024. It's a sad reality, but a reality nonetheless. Do you want to be the one to tell him, or shall I? I suspect he might just tell me to go and do one. And classic Doctor Who never patronised its audience. Now that's all it ever does. And so the only times it ever did, I mean, it came unstuck pretty quickly, and it never did so deliberately. I don't believe classic Doctor Who ever patronised its audience deliberately, and rarely at all. And now that's all it ever does. I think it does stray into that territory. Yeah. Thank you for the comments. An hour, not bad for a test. I'm a gobshite. That's the problem. You let me rattle on. And Paul says, I still think Netflix or Amazon would have been a better choice than Disney. Well, provably so. I understand, because Bad Wolf had an established relationship, didn't they, with Amazon, because that's who they made his Dark Materials for. Even though it's shown on the BBC, it was made for Amazon, and I think it's still there. And they've got other things on Amazon as well. They've got a relationship with Sky, because they carry I Hate Sue's, is it the Billy Piper show? They've got a relationship with Sky. Netflix, don't know. I think they did speak to Netflix, come to think of it. I mean, as a brand, historically, Disney, if you'd have said to me Disney like 15, 20 years ago with Doctor Who, it's a natural fit because of that cross-generational appeal. But Doctor Who got into bed with Disney at exactly the wrong time. For all parties. And Doug says, I'm sure Disney, Sony and BBC will want to return on their investment. This can't have been profitable. I think in many ways, I think it depends on their expectations of it. It could be, we don't know what their expectations of it. They claim they have longer term expectations of it than they would have had previously. And that's why they're looking at the 28-day figure and the 3-month figure for people who will find the show, who will have put it on their playlist, their to watch list, and getting to it then through the app. And that is a business model that works for other shows. I'm not going to call that bull because that's how other shows work. But it's not a good look, is it? This can't have been profitable. Change must happen, or cancellation. Well, Doctor Who won't be cancelled. It's just too big an intellectual property. Disney will either continue with it. And I personally think that they will in the short term. I see season 3 again. Season 3 has been commissioned. Disney will continue it for a little while longer, at least. Cancellation of Doctor Who is not going to happen, though. It may end up being rested for a couple of years, but it was rested between 2021 and it's been rested before. But they did everything they could to make it look like it hadn't been. Yes, I understand what you mean, Lee. And phew, he was laughing with me. Thank heaven for that. And laying it to Russell T Davies again. He's too arrogant to be told anything was wrong with it, says Paul Toastland. But publicly. Have you noticed he's been really quite quiet in the last 6 weeks since his little statement about the ratings? It was a very small statement. What was it? They're not where we want them to be, something like that. That's a huge admission for a character like Russell T Davies. Huge. Espousing. I love that word. Espousing is word of the day. I'm going to try and fit that into my vocabulary. Espousing, officially word of the day. Yep. Decided. They agree. Thank you. I miss Simon, says Problem Being. Well, thank you. I miss Simon. Where is he? Not here. No, Simon Horton will be back. Professor Horton himself, he will be back on the panel. I think he's back later in the week, actually, come to think of it. He's been on his jollies all over the place, and he's been conducting special work, extracurricular work with the Jerry Anderson fandom community. Yes, I think you'll probably find something about that. It's certainly on the Type 40X account. You can see something about that. Boomer Dog says, I discovered Type 40 in January. It's a fabulous experience. The Type 40 experience. When did Charlotte Shields come round and put a cucumber through your letterbox and shout the Martians are coming? Now I can't bloody get off YouTube, much to my partner's annoyance. Well, happy to wind up any partners, companions or friends out there. It's very much our pleasure. Never changed. I think I've changed enough. And Lee says there are some things the bar should never be accepted for lowering, and Doctor Who is one of them. I can't argue with that. I wouldn't argue with that. I think ideally it was going in the right direction. Up until 2015, it was going in the right direction. I think when the BBC's priorities changed, Doctor Who's priorities changed. Yeah, it's not. And look where we are now. I don't think Doctor Who has the same cachet it had, though, quite honestly. And whether it can ever recover that, I hate to say it, odds aren't good, are they? Odds aren't good. I think the idea that Doctor Who is too big to be affected by something like that, it's been proven to be untrue. And it doesn't matter what we say, it doesn't matter who we speak to, who we email, who we call, even these guys. It doesn't matter. Even franchises like Doctor Who, Star Trek and Star Wars can suffer, and maybe they've all had their day. There's an argument that says that they've all had their day and they can never recover, and maybe that they shouldn't recover, and we should dream up other things to take their place. And a few people do believe that, and I see what they're saying, but I love Doctor Who, as I mentioned it. Yes, so tone down the rhetoric and all that kind of jazz. Yes, I agree, and tone me down as well. I think you've suffered enough. Everybody, I think you've suffered enough. So Type 40 Live is incoming this evening here on the Type 40 channel with myself, with the fabulous Shah and the gorgeous Chris Walker-Thompson. I think I've got that the right way around, haven't I? They're with me later on there for Type 40 Live, and whoever else I can wrangle into the console room for more of this nonsense, really. So if you want in on that, you know where to be and when. It's the Type 40 channel from 8 p.m. So thank you for all the comments, everybody. How about some of this?
Oh my God, I'm a big fan. Thank you.
All right, good to see you.
Come on, man. Nice to meet you, mate.
All the best. Take care.
That's Doctor Who. I just met Doctor Who. Stop playing with me, bro. This is the type of places we be at. We meet Doctor Who. What are you doing?
What am I doing? I ask myself that all the time. This has been a test. This is what Gary would call a nooner, isn't it? Even though it's later than noon. This has been a nooner, a test here on the Type 40 channel, because there's been some gremlins in the system, and I wanted to make sure that everything was still working okay for when we go live later on with Type 40 Live, myself and a few pals for the usual kind of nonsense. Really, there's lots to talk about. As always, we hope to see some of you there. Of course we do. That includes you, Stephanie, and you, DD, and you too, Lee. Case closed. Is a case ever closed when it comes to Doctor Who? No, of course not. But I think that is me out. Look forward to seeing all of you, yes, including you, there for Type 40 Live later on. Thanks for indulging me with this one. Maybe I'll do this again without the gremlins in the works next time. But thank you, everybody. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, and hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what's going on next, where and when, and all that jazz. See you later. Bye-bye.